निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रं यहमहं इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता भवनचलनो आत्मनिष्ठो भवतु। देहं ब्रह्म जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तभावशुद्धिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भाव कुतोऽवरद्य दृष्टात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचल शिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on Vivekachoodamani by Adi Shankara. We have been relying on the translation of the original Sanskrit work by Bhagavan into Tamil, which is also translated into English by the ashram. Part of the collected works. We have gone through the Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira, the gross, the subtle and causal bodies. That is the Anatma. The Acharya has assured that he will take the student, the questioner, through what is the non-self. Now he is taking up the next question of the student, what is the self? The non-self as the gross body, subtle body, causal body have been covered Then the question on what is the self is taken up and dealt with in verses 126 through 138. This is what we are going to see today. Since it's about the self, it's about 13 verses or so, we will limit ourselves to that. This is the covering of the pointer to the ultimate by the Acharya. It starts with verse 126, which Bhagavan has translated as, now I am going to tell you about the real nature of the Supreme Self, by realizing which man attains liberation and is freed from bondage. So this whole segment of 13 verses is going to point us. It will help us in Manana and then later in Nididhyasana. But right now, it is giving us the Viveka. It is giving us the pointers as to what is the nature of the self. And Bhagavan is saying, the Acharya is saying that this knowledge of the reality of the self will do two things. It will remove bondage, which is identical with attaining Kaivalya, attaining the non-dual state. So how is this self there? The self present? It is present as the Adhara of the I sense. It is present as the support of the realization of the I is indeed the self, which is experienced as I, shining of its own accord as the absolute being. We have the relative being that I am this body or I am this mental identity, which we understand from practice of Bhagavan's teachings is the ego. Here the I, the self which the Acharya is referring is the Adhara to that ego sense. And we are aware from Bhagavan's teachings that the ego itself is defined as the root of all problems. That is, if you want to know the one cause behind all miseries, then that is this ego sense, that is this I. And the solution is in dissolution of the I. Whatever appears to the I is still in the area of limitations, since it is appearing within the scope of knowledge of a limited being. Whatever the ego knows has to be limited, still ashashvatam. So therefore, cannot be the kaivalya sthiti, cannot be the freedom from bondage. What is this self? The self is the experience of I, which is the adhara of the I, and it is the pure being. What is the difference between the ego and the self? This should be very clear to us. Whenever we are in the ego sense, whenever we are in the identity with the body or identity with the mental identity that we have taken up, then that is always accompanied with the other. That the ego does not stand alone, it comes up with the other objects. So whenever the I is aware of another, we should understand that that is not the real self. It is not the Meyaham. Of course, you will remember this usage even in Aksharamanamalai, where the Ishvara's self is called as the Meyaham. So what we are going to realize as the self here is the Ishvara's self, as Bhagavan gives clarification to Devraj Mudaliyar. Don't seek anything in the Ishvara's body, don't seek anything in the Ishvara's mind, but only seek the Ishvara's self. That is the Adhara for everything. There are 2-3 things indicated about this I. It is the absolute being, it has been said. So therefore, it is the absolute being on which the absolute love called grace and absolute awareness called jnana are experienceable. So if or the identity with the Brahman is the complete knowledge of what is grace and what is jnana. So once you identify with the I, you are aware what is talked about as grace of God and what is talked about as jnana. They are not different from the Brahman. The I, that is the absolute being. It is defined in 2-3 ways. It is the witness of the waking, dream and deep sleep. That means if you are the gross body identity, then you are a bound being in the waking. If you have the subtle body identity, then you are the bound being in the dream. If you have the causal body identity, you are the bound being in deep sleep. You will be pushed out. Whereas this I, it is the mere witness. The waking, the dream and deep sleep pass by it. The I remains unattached. It is not affected by any of the passing of these 3 states. So, number 1, it is the witness of the 3 states. It is distinct from the 5 koshas. It is distinct from the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya and Anandamaya koshas. There is going to be kosha discussion later in later verses. The Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha will all be taken up for discussion when we go one more round with the Viveka and Jnana. The Acharya will be taking us through that. But here the Jnana, the Viveka is given that the I is distinct, is not touchable by any of these koshas, is not permeated by any of these koshas. Then it is the witness of the waking, dream and sleep states. It is distinct from the Panchakoshas, and then it sees everything of its own accord, of its own light. It comes to the knowledge of everything, but cannot be known by anything. Any other light, ulladu unarvu verinmayin, ulladu unarvahum undipara, unarve namayulam undipara. If you have to really experience the I, you have to be the I. If you say that you have completely understood or what is this I, then there is no other way to know it except by being it, because there is no other there than the I. So it lights up, it knows everything or it sees everything by its own light, but it is never the seen. It is always the pure drik. It is never the drishya. So that is the perception. Then giving light. We have seen while discussing the Dakshinamurti Stotram, we came upon this kind of distinction or Viveka for our own sake. That chit can be taken as revelatory chit and perceiving chit. So first is perceiving chit. Yes, the self is the perceiving chit, but is never the perceived object or perceived chit by others. But it is also that it gives light to the intellect and ego, but is never enlightened by them. That means it stands as the revelatory chit for the intellect and the ego, but is never enlightened or is not given its even revelatory chit by something else. The knowing chit also is not by something else. Its own revelatory nature is also not by something else. That means it gives the revelatory chit to the intellect and ego. It lights them up, but is never lit by any of them. The next point, it is pervading the whole of the universe. It is pervading the whole of the universe and lights up the universe from within and without. It is both the revelatory chit as well as the revealing chitta in the universe, but is not pervaded by the universe in the least. It is untouched by the universe. So these are the indications as to what is going to be the nature of the self you are going to experience. The I, what is its nature? It is the absolute being. It does not see the being of anything else. It alone is. It is the witness of all the three states. When, here and now, when it is having perception of the sensory body and the sensory world, it's still a witness. It is unaffected consciousness. When it is perceiving the thoughts, it is still the witness. It is the unaffected. So it has come to the dream without waiting for any time period. It has brought the experience to that of dream. When it removes all the thoughts, for whom is this thought? All the thoughts are deleted. We are able to see the blank. Then it has brought deep sleep here. And by the lack of knowledge there, by the absence of knowledge, it is not perturbed. If you don't get an answer to a question, you are perturbed. So you are afraid to be in the deep sleep state while in the body and while in the thought state. You don't want to go into a I do not know state. But Bhagavan says that is, I know that I do not know. So the I know that I do not know does not tamper with our existence. It cannot take away our existence. And our existence is untrammeled by the existence of the world, the gross world, or the subtle world, or the gross body, or the subtle body in the deep sleep. Therefore, we understand when we can see our existence as in deep sleep, we are in touch with the I. We are in touch with the pure absolute being. Bring the dream, bring the deep sleep here and now, and be a witness of that. Don't wait. What is this witness in deep sleep? Should I go to deep sleep and then witness? So those doubts are all clarified that all the three shariras are available here and now. As the self is available here and now, all the veilings are also available here and now. And you can experience the self as the witness of the three states. And that it pervades the universe. The self pervades the gross universe and is not pervaded by the universe in the least. In its presence, so that is regarding the revelatory chit and the knowing chit. It knows everything by itself. It is not known by anything else. It provides the revelatory chit to everything else. It is not provided revelatory chit by anything else. Now come to actions. It is the source of all actions is what is going to be. In its presence, in its sannidhi, the body, the senses, the mind, the intellect enter upon their functions as if commanded by it. We feel with the ego that I did this, I did that, they did this, they did that. All this doership we have right through the waking state with our ego. Then we wait to come back to be pushed into waking state and then go back into the play of the ego. Whereas here, we understand the ego, the body, the mind, the senses, everything comes into action where in its presence, in its sannidhi, in the sannidhi of the I. Now, we can reflect on the slight difference between Bhagavan's teachings and the Acharyas, which allow us to come to the Ajata of Bhagavan. The looking at Ajata in the common man's perspective, when Bhagavan opens it up for all of us, we see that Bhagavan uses this sannidhi, that the self does not pervade the universe. It is the sannidhi that pervades the universe. The self is merely self-luminous. It is the shadow region. It is the sannidhi which is still of the I nature, which permeates all the universes. So, Acharya says the self itself permeates. Therefore, he has to construct Maya as the Adhara for the creation. And he does, and Bhagavan does go with that. He doesn't say anything here. But in Bhagavan's teachings, if you see that the Sannidhi itself is what is permeating, the self is merely self-luminous. It is stand alone. It is stand alone by itself, and it is the Sannidhi that is permeating, not the self. That slight difference, if you can understand, then the abiding in the I, without even the definition of Maya, the construct required of Maya, you can come to the I. So that is one thing you can keep in mind while doing the sadhana of going towards the I. In its presence, in its Sannidhi, the body, the senses, the mind, the intellect enter upon their functions as if commanded. You can remember it being, the self being in Atma Bodha called as Avaika Rasan. That it is seated in the chair of the king, and everybody else, the ministers, the sevaks, the whole kingdom is functioning at the mere presence of the king by the unbroken knowledge. So we know that everything, all doings are happening by the presence of the self, I. Now what about experiencing? Doing is completed. Doing goes along with experiencing. That is Bhoktarutva and Kartrutva. Doing is Kartrutva, Bhoktarutva is experiencing or enjoyment. All the enjoyments, all the experiencing, by that unbroken knowledge, all things from the ego to the body, objects and our experience of them occur and are perceived. That the objects and how they are experienced, all these happen and they are perceived. How? So in the outgoing direction of karma also, it is the presence of the self. In the reverse direction of being an experiencer, because as an experiencer only one can turn inward. What is it that we are listening? Who is listening? So it is the experiencer, not reactor, not the returning the favor with karma. So both the outward journey and the relative inward journey are all happening in the presence of the self. So the Acharya's greatness coming to Bhagavan is that he is helping the jiva attune itself to the inward pull of the self. The inward Acharya is not different from the self. So he tunes the listener to the Sishya, to the devotee, to tune himself to the I's inward pull in the experiencing direction, so that we can move easily in the sadhana. Our effort will be very less. The ever existing inner pull of the I is what will be really helping. But you will also have to turn inward, Bhagavan will say, because if you are slightly turned outward also, the outward push of the I will be taking you. So we have to be holding like monkey, then slowly that journey becomes like a kitten. We really see that it is really the grace that is pulling us inward. Till such time, till we are grasping, we have to turn and inward, do the inner grasping of the I by ourselves. But you can see how coming to self-enquiry, coming to Bhakti Marga, Sharanagati, the Acharya, the Guru is the best thing that can happen to the sufferer, because he uses the jiva's energy to make it in tune with grace. Grace shines as I, and the inward pull is better experienced when we turn inward. By it, 133, verse number 133, by it, life. So we are finished with how the self is the doer, the self is the experiencer. By it, by the I, life and various organs are set in motion. That inner self is coming to the definition of what is the nature of the I. That inner self as the primeval spirit, eternal, ever effulgent, full, infinite bliss, single, indivisible, whole, and living, shines in everyone. It is alive, it is ever existing, it is shining in everyone as the witness awareness. It is available as the Sakshi. So what is the nature of, he has said that It is the witness of the waking dream and deep sleep. It is the one which gives light or sees everything on its own accord, then gives light to everything, is not seen by anything, is not lit up by anything. It is the source of all actions, it is the source of all experiencing. Now, what exactly it is? It is self-effulgent, it is the primeval spirit, it is eternal, it is full and infinite bliss, it is single, it is indivisible, whole, living, it shines in everyone as the witness awareness. This Sakshi Bhava. In the Ekashloki, when asked who is God by the Sishya, in the Ekashloki, Shankara says, Adi Shankara says that you are the light. You are the light by which everything is seen. So in the waking, it is the sun and the lamp, and in your thoughts, it is your I thought, and to the I thought, whoever brings light, that is you only. So as the bringer of Adara or light to the I thought, you are the light of all lights, you are the Parabrahman. That way in the Ekashloki, you would have brought us holding the Chitta and coming to the I from there. That I is the witness of everything, and it is present in everyone. This everyone situation also can be easily understood. That only when you want to see this witness, what is this witness? If you see everyone as different atmas out there, you should understand you are seeing them as anatma. You are not seeing their atma swarupa. You are seeing their anatma only. Because what can you see with the eyes? You can see only the anatma. What can you know with the mind? With the mind, which itself is anatma, you can know only anatma. So, how do you experience that? This I is the witness within everyone. You bring everyone inside. That, as Bhagavan says in Ulladu Narpadu, after the I, the first person arises only, the second and third persons arise. So bring them all back in. See for whom the second and third persons, all the anatma eyes, are for whom? Are for me. Who am I? You come to that one witness which is shining as I. You clearly understand this is present as witness. This is what in Arunachala Pancharatnam it says that you are shining as I within everyone. So that is experientially possible in self-inquiry when you understand that all the other eyes are really not out there. They are all available as second and third persons for the I within. For whom is this? If you ask for whom is the all the other eyes, for me. Who am I? That I is the one which sprouts as witness in the many eyes. So the experience of how the I is the witness in everyone is to be experienced directly here. That he is the witnessing awareness. Verse 134, that self in its splendor. Now, where is it? Where is it to be experienced? Is what it is has been described. Is the witness within everyone, is whole, is eternal, it's unbroken, it is infinite. Now, where to experience it? In the cavity of the heart. That self in all its splendor is shining in the cavity of the heart as the subtle, pervasive, like the unmanifest ether, illumines the universe like a sun. That which is shining here, how it can illumine the whole universe like the sun? Because it is permeating everything from here. It is permeating the causal, it is permeating the subtle, it is permeating the gross. So it is lighting up, it is permeating the whole universe. To know that Pindam mevi anadane, Brahmandam mevi anadana, you should know completely who is the Pindam mevi anadan. Who is it that is enlightening this body, this Panchakoshas or the three Shariras? Then by experience itself, you know that the one who is pervading the Pinda is the same one. You don't need to look out. When you have brought all the individualities here, then to experience that the self is permeating the whole universe, it is enough to experience the I. That it illumines the whole universe like the sun. It is aware of the modifications of the mind and the ego, of the actions of the body, the sense, and the life birth. I have missed out one important point earlier, coming to this modifications of the mind that was there in the verse 127 itself. That's an important point. So let me regress a bit, go back, cover that up a little bit. The self is also supposed to know the presence of the mental modes as a witness. It is able to see the presence of the mental modes in waking and dream, and also experience the absence of the mental modes in deep sleep. Now, why did I find it important enough to go back, not miss it, and leave it for a reading by you? Is that is actually experiencable in Atmaucharam. In Atmaucharam, as you see, inquire the I, for whom is this thought, for whom is this thought, you go hold the I that is experiencing the gross states and all the thoughts in the waking state. You understand that when you are experiencing the thoughts independent of the body, you understand how in dream state the I will be still the witness of the thoughts. So the mental modes of waking and dream are clear. In the inquiry itself, it becomes clear that the I is aware of the mental modes of waking and dream, and also it is aware of the absence of the mental modes in deep sleep. How is that? When we come to the stillness of the I and go to the blank beyond thoughts, then we understand that without those mental modes, without thought modes, also the self is. So the I is the experiencer of the mental modes, mental modifications, as well as the absence of mental modifications in deep sleep. It takes their form as fire does, that of heated ball of iron, and yet it does not undergo any change. Now the Acharya has brought us to the I and is saying how a jnani will be functioning. That in the jnani, there is awareness that I am lighting up the upadhis. I am lighting up the upadhis. I am not blocked by the upadhis. So as soon as the work is over, the upadhis are dropped because the I is not attached. It is yugapat srishtis. The rays in speaking or hearing is like the iron ball being fired up. That the consciousness seems to take that shape, but there is this awareness that I am not those upadhis. Therefore, it is not affected. The consciousness is not affected by those shapes it takes, and it drops and comes. And this is of such natural nature of coming back to I, that when the upadhis break as the body comes to an end in death, the space within, having already been identified with, it does not undergo any change. The I does not undergo any change. That is, the breaking of the body or the breaking of the pot, nothing happens to the I. That's what Bhagavan says, that even when the body was being used, the Shruti note was never missed. The I was never missed. It was always present. That is how the expressions are there. He comes to talk, the whole, like an iron ball lit up by fire, it is lit up. The fire takes the form. The fire knows I am not having any name or form. So it resumes its natural state. The self in it remains eternal. That when the pot breaks, Videha Mukti, the self, Bhagavan says, even while in the body, the jnani is not attached to it. Therefore, nothing happens to him in the dropping of the atoms of the body. Now comes the last two verses, which cover the nature of the self and abiding in it. It is distinct from causal maya and its effects. So the Acharya has to say this, that because the self is permeating, and the Acharya brings the maya as the root cause in the causal body. The maya shakti made of the mixture of the three gunas, he has posited. But what about the self? The self is, the I is beyond the effects of maya, beyond the three gunas mixture. It is pure knowledge. It does not have knowledge and ignorance. It illumines being and non-being alike. Bhagavan says, what is the difference between the knowledge of the self and the knowledge of the mind? The knowledge of the self lights up both knowledge and ignorance. What does that mean? It means that the state of I do not know is also known. That the ego can never know is also known. That with the instrument of ego, I can never come to real knowledge is known by the I. So it knows about the existence and non-existence of all the earlier modes, the gross and the subtle. It reveals to itself the existence and the non-existence of those things which are subject to birth and death and appearance and disappearance. It is pure knowledge. It illumines both being and non-being. It is the witness of the intellect in the waking, dream and deep sleep states. It is the Sakshi. Sakshi, this you will be finding, as I said, in the Acharya's Ekashloki. You will be finding in the mindfulness meditation also. But since they will be mentioning a lot of benefits of mindfulness, you will find that it restricts itself to a very secular zone of Vyavahara. It doesn't take the witness to the Brahman. It says you will be part of the team, you will have this benefit, your life will become better and all those things. But no such relative benefit is suggested in any of these verses because they are all aimed at the only thing, the root of bondage and the elimination of it and realization of Kaivalya. That is the only thing. No other intermediary benefits are suggested because that will still be in the zone of bondage. Then finally it shines as I as ever present direct experience. It is an aparoksha anubhuti. It cannot be, the I cannot be experienced indirectly. So whenever there is indirect experience, you can know that you have to ask for whom is this. I said whenever you see another, there is this exchange between Bhagwan and one of his devotees whose article has been published and collected in the work called Surpassing Grace. We have been reading that in the morning satsang. And there are two instances that happened to him. In the beginning, the first instance narrated by him is that he comes to Bhagavan and says, I am able to experience the I sometimes. Sometimes I am able to experience this I. But immediately or sometime later, the mind comes and says, you really do not know the I. The mind comes, raises up and tells that you really do not know the I. Then what Bhagavan does, he brings the book Ulladu Narpadu, makes them take the verse 33 and shows it to him that Ennai ariyen naan, Ennai arinden naan, Ennal nagaipukkidanagum, Ennai Tanai vidayamaka iruthanundo, Undrai anevaradu buddhi unmaya. This is the verse he reads. What does it mean? It means that whenever the mind says, I don't know, you should understand that you have come into the Nagaipukida, the laughable area. Because the self will never say, I know myself or I don't know myself. Bhagavan would put it in Ashtakam that as soon as he comes to Arunachala, whether Arunachala pushed his mind inward or the self inside pulled his, we don't know all that. Bhagavan says, Kandavan Yavanana Karut. Immediately his attention went to who is the one who is the Kandavan Yavanana Karutinul Nada. Kandavan Indrida. So Kandavan Kandadu Rendum Indrida Nindrathu Kande. That which is I could experience. Kandanan Nendrida Karutezhavillai, Kandilan Nendrida Karutezhumaran. The moment you are abiding in the I, you have no other person to go and validate yourself and say, I have seen. Now, why will I go and catch up somebody and say, I have not seen? He says, I will simply abide. Since there is no other there, so there is no question of Kandilan. Now, you can put there Arindanan enrida Arivalaville, Arindilan enrida Arivalma. Substituting verse 33 there in Ashtakam, we can easily understand that to say I know or that I do not know, there is no other. Therefore, whenever you feel that you don't know the self or that you know the other, immediately there is only one thing to do. Who is saying I know or I don't know? I am only saying who am I? With effort, holding the eye, you are able to experience with effort whatever Acharya is describing here. You will be able to directly feel it. So why he is saying it is eternal? You hold that, there will be no other thought. There will be no other thought of time or place or anything. So this is why, since there is nothing other than itself, there is no place, there is no time in which for it to be duration or to be split up as two different existences. So you will understand all that even with effort. And when you start understanding it, the avoidance will become natural. Without effort, will start abiding in that. So the I shines as ever present, direct experience. It is aparoksha anubhuti. And the final verse number 138. How do we know the Supreme Self? Know that Supreme Self by the means of a one-pointed mind. Kurna Madhya. கூர்ந்தமதியால் பேச்சு மூச்சடக்கி கொண்டுள்ளே ஆழ்ந்தறிய வேண்டும் ஹரி. Bhagavan says in the sadhana verses that the mind should become subtle and subtle. So that is one other indication. Can you see the self with these eyes? Obviously not. You cannot see it. You can see only the non-self. I can see only the other person also as the non-self. So I can't see the self with the eye. It has to become subtler than that. So observe the breath. As soon as the breath quietens the mind to a level where you can observe the thought, start observing the thought. That means your own subtlety is becoming subtler and subtler. And when you start holding the eye thought, that is the subtlest that a jiva can get. So you can understand this. Kurdamadi. Kurdamadi anniyathai ariyada madi. It becomes subtler and subtle. Know the Supreme Self by the means of a one-pointed mind and know that this I is Brahman. This Atma Swarupa, this I itself is the Brahman. The Parabrahma Swarupam and Atma Swarupam are not different. When the polyweir, when the false eye, which are always getting attached to the non-self, when it frees itself and stills itself, and that which is shining within the eye of Adiyaditara Jivara Havarisa Guhail Arivairami Paramatman Arunachalaram. The Paramatman is shining within the eye of every Jiva from Vishnu downwards. So how to experience that? He is shining within the eye. And you are in the mode of using the eye all the time. The eye is outward. That's why Baba says, still the eye. The moment the eye understands this, that my good lies in stilling myself. What happens there? That which is shining within the eye of Vishnu downwards, all the jivas, that is Ramana, Arunachala Ramana, is waiting there for us. The eye is waiting there for us. Initially, you may experience it indirectly. By stilling the eye, you will get the fragrance of this Purana. But then the Chitjada Granthi is burnt down, cut asunder. You identify with the I. You, just like we had earlier identified with the body or with the title that you are Nandakumar or you are so and so or whatever, all those are subtle body identities. You are clearly understand that cannot be you. And in enquiry, clearly with the subtle attention, the ego covering is burnt down. The Chitjada Granthi is burnt down. Then one identifies with the Spurana. You understand that the reality of the other person whom you had as a close friend for so many years, but you understand you never saw that person's reality. You never saw the reality of that person. And Bhagavan says to the same person, he is coming down the hill and this gentleman is going up the hill, and there comes a narrow passage where they are meeting, that the pathway narrows down. So he wants to give Bhagavan space and goes to the rock face and flattens himself against that, so that Bhagavan will have space to go down. And when Ramana is passing him, he is saying, are you still seeing two? Are you still seeing two selves? The moment you are seeing two selves, that means you are not seeing Ramana. You are not seeing Ramana in his reality. If you want to really see Ramana, you have to see him as the I. He is not the body that he dropped in the 1950, April 14. That's not he. This is not us. Want to see the reality of Ramana, you have to search for your own reality. And where do we see that? Know the Supreme Self by means of a one-pointed mind, and know that this I is Brahman, that I is Brahman. Thus, through the intellect, you may know the self, yourself, by yourself. So, in this marga, that where Maya is posited, the teaching is that you can start experiencing the self in the Vijnanamaya Kosha itself, where the ego is still. So the Vijnanamaya Kosha is still there. So the Jivan Mukti is posited. Jivan Mukti is posited as the non-doership. Once you start experiencing, naturally the I in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, you start getting into the stages of the Mukti, the Jivan Mukti. That is Brahmavid, Brahmavid Vara, Brahmavid Varenya, Brahmavid Varishta. In Varishta, there is no medium through which you are experiencing the I. There is no medium, there is no Vijnanamaya Kosha through which you are experiencing. Bhagavan, whenever he teaches, he will say that the Vijnanamaya Kosha is transcended. The Anandamaya Kosha is transcended. That means the I in Bhagavan's teaching is independent of these koshas. And you can hold it and transcend all these koshas. And when you hold it without asking for anything, it will quieten down, says Bhagavan. That is why I said that in Bhagavan's teachings, what permeates the koshas, what permeates the creation is only the sannidhi of the I. This I is merely self-luminous. The right shadow region, like that, the shadow region or the radiation of the self-luminosity, that is the sannidhi in which the whole creation is there. It is the sannidhi that permeates the creation in Brahma. So when you go, Bhagavan will not be satisfied by you saying that you are experiencing the I in the Vijnanamaya Kosha. You say, where is the Vijnanamaya Kosha? Where is the intellect? The intellect has to be cut asunder. The Anandamaya Kosha also has to be cut asunder. But then you can understand this itself, this depth itself, the Maya Rahita Sthiti of Ajata is, and to bring it to the open teaching, as an open teaching, really Bhagavan, the Avatara alone can do that. But you can see the efficacy of it, that where Maya Bhagavan says it is Yama, it does not exist in Bhagavan's teaching. But you can understand how the Acharya gives room for that, gives that you can easily understand how the Brahmavid is there. The Brahmavid, he has not broken through the koshas completely, but he is able to identify, he is able to experience the I in the Vijnanamaya Kosha. His Vijnanamaya Kosha is there, his Anandamaya Kosha is there. So, but he is a non-doer. And you understand how the duality-based muktis of Bhakti Marga, that means he is really living, when he is experiencing the I in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, he is living in a non-doer world. That means he is already living in Kailasha or Vaikunta. So you can understand those states more clearly. You keep the koshas in experiencing the I.
But where the efficacy in Bhagavan's teachings come is, you are not allowed any such stops. You will be asked, for whom is this? When you say that I am in a non-doership world, who feels in a non-doership, that is in a non-doership world, he will ask. So that the Bhagavan's teaching will not stop, till the I alone is there, beyond all the koshas. But with the Acharya's teaching, you can understand the Jnana Bhumikas beyond the Jivan Mukti state, or how the Jnana Bhumikas come, how the Ishvara is able to have command over those, you are able to see. But with Bhagavad teachings also, you can see that it's only the subtlety of the eye. He deals with the subtlety of the eye. He says the eye can be of the non-doer state, non-knower state, non-being state. So by these three, with reference only to the I, he will define mukti. He will not define mukti with reference to the things around. But then that we will be able to realize that the beauty of Bhagavan's teachings as we get into the practice of Atmavicharam. This I is Brahman. Thus, through the intellect, you may know that the self is yourself, self in yourself, by yourself. And by this means, cross the ocean of birth and death and become one with one who has achieved the life's purpose and ever remain as the self. By experiencing the I, realizing that all the things are done by the I. All the things are known in the presence of the I. All the things are experienced in the presence of the I. So experiencing the I alone is the key. When we realize that, then all the things happen without any doership. You don't need to know anything else other than the self. In fact, nothing else is there other than the self. These three stages of the Jnana Bhumikas will be naturally experienced, not only understood, but experienced as reality when we start experiencing that I in the Vijnanamaya Kosha, as the Acharya says. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We have about 7 minutes before Ka will be addressing us. We can sit in Atmavachara till. You can set the time for us.
Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana, sir. Prostrations to Ramana, shining is the self in all beings. This has been our prostration in every class. And today, by the grace of that very self, the verse has meditated on that self which shines within all as a witness. In fact, this is the theme which we take even to school children from Ramanacentre Center for Learning. The team goes to several underprivileged school children and teaches them verses, rhymes, dance drama. And in that, one of the basic rhymes, Ramana says God's power shines in all beings as I am. That is one of the rhymes which is taught to the children. So, to get in touch, when one gets in touch with that within the heart, Sadhu Swami says, Ingu kanda piragudan iruppadellam avanmayam. It's only when one discovers the truth within oneself, in the heart, then everything is seen to be pervaded by that. And Nandakumar ji was saying that Bhagavan says it is not just immanent, it is transcendent. Everything shines within the self. Bhagavan says that when he had the experience as a boy of 17 in July 1896, then at that moment, in a flash, he experienced that truth which transcended and included the body. In his Ekarma Panchakam, he says, Tannul Tanu Irukka, Tana Chadaudalan Tannul Irupada Tanu Mannavan. So see, the body is in the self. But ignorance makes us say that self is in the body. Nonetheless, giving concession to this condition of ours, Bhagavan allows us to inquire both who am I and whence am I, and get back to the heart source, to the Aham Spurana. And another very beautiful statement which Nandakumar ji emphasized for us today is that the self is true knowledge, knowledge that transcends both knowledge and ignorance and includes both and is a witness to both, and that the self is true love. When we understand that the self is true knowledge, then the seeking of objective knowledge will cease. Because what is there to be known that is not included in the self? So the kartritva bhava, which has its basis in the very thought. Thought itself is the first action. It is a movement towards an object. In order to grasp it with what? With awareness. And for what purpose? To know it. That's the primary purpose, to know it. There's so many thoughts which come in our minds, which will be only, I know this or that. This has happened, that has happened, this is there, this is how the sun rises. They are knowledge-based facts. And we are disturbed by the absence of knowledge. One of the devotees actually asked me, Bhagavan says that one must unlearn everything that one has learned if one is to abide in the self. What happens then? Paul Brenton also asked, will one become an idiot? Then Bhagavan says, no, that alone is true knowledge. That alone is true knowledge which transcends the relativity of knowledge and ignorance. And that we can experience it even in the ignorance, because we say, I know that I don't know. I know that I don't know. So that it underlies both knowledge and ignorance and transcends both. When we understand that is the true knowledge, that is our very own true nature, the need to move out through thought is not there anymore. Because what is there to know? What is there to grasp through the thought? That is not already included in the self. And if one motive for thought to move out is the intellectual need to know, the other motive for the thought to move out is the rati, or the love that it has for objects. That's why, because it finds the objects desirable, so it moves towards the objects. It thinks objects are desirable. But when one recognizes that the true love is within, it is the very self, what is one going to get by moving outside? When the self is pure love and the self is awaiting us as that pure love. Bhagavan says the mother, real mother is the Chinmayi, the self which is shining within. So every time the mind pretends that it is lonely, it wants fulfillment through an object. It feels isolated. It thinks that it will be complete only in association with or through the fulfillment of some desire. Then this statement that the self is pure love, it is the fullness of love, and there is nothing equal to that love in the entire universe, because there is nothing apart from it even. What are all the little loves that we know and which seem so beautiful to us? What are all the little happinesses that we know because of the love which we have for objects? All that amount of the vastness of the infinity of that love and that knowledge. So when we are aware of this, then the need to go out will gradually decrease. Bhagavan gives the example of a cow that is used to grazing in the neighbor's pastures. It always goes and grazes in the neighbor's pastures. That is the nature of our mind. Going out of our own home, the self, towards objects. And what happens is the neighbor beats the cow. We get disappointed. We get beaten by our experiences in the world. We get sorrow because every pleasure is followed by the ending of that pleasure and our feeling sorrow at the end of that pleasure. And even during the experience of any joy, there is fear of the loss of that joy. So this fear and sorrow are constant companions with us. Despite that, the mind goes out. Despite it, it seeks objects. So Bhagavan says, the owner of the cow first started giving it rich fodder at home and luscious grass at home in the cowshed. Initially, the cow would enjoy this luscious grass and fodder and still go out because of the force of habit. But gradually, the cow began to understand that when such delicious food is available at home, why get beaten outside in the world? So Bhagavan says that fodder which we have to give to this cow, no amount of intellectual understanding that the self is bliss, the self is love, the self is knowledge, can keep us from extroversion. We need to experience it for ourselves. But once it is tasted, then little by little, it will understand the wisdom of staying at home. It will understand that going outside is only kritimaho dadho patana karanam. Again and again, it is falling into more and more action. Why not be that emperor? That emperor is also described by Bhagavan in Ashtakam. He says, Uru Kudai Nidar Hove Indraham Puram Iruvinai Iral Janmam Indu Tunbu Gana Idayam. He says, one abides in that denseness of that self. Gana Idayam. That in the heart, then there is no inside, outside, ahampuram, inbu, tunbu, all that is not there. Sorrow, pleasure, both are not there. But what happens is one becomes the supreme emperor of the entire universe. Oru Kudai Nidar Kove, under the great umbrella, one single umbrella, such an emperor one can become, says Bhagavan, by abiding in the self, which was also alluded to by Nandakumarji today. All this to bring to us the magnificence of that which is our very own, and the triviality of that which is apparently outside and alluring, for which we should not lose out on this infinite treasure. Om Namo Bhagavate Sudhaya.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramana to all.